In today's video, I'm going to cover the if function. In my opinion, this is the most important function to know in Excel, so I'm going to go over a few examples to help you get started with this. Let's go. In our first example, we'll just go over a basic if function. So to get started, I'm going to type in equals if, and our first argument is the logical test. So I'm going to select the population needs to be greater than 20 million, and what do we want to return if that is true? Well, in this case here, I want to enter big. Remember to always put text between quotations. And if the value isn't true, what will we like to return? I would like to return small. Close the bracket, hit enter, and let's drag that down. And there we have it. That is the basic if function. In this example, I have multiple conditions I would like to evaluate. So if the city is equal to or greater than 20 million, we want big. If it's equal to or greater than 15 million, but smaller than 20 million, we want it to equal average. And if it's smaller than 15 million, we want it to return small. So to do this, there's actually a function in Excel. It's a slight variation from the if function, and it replaces the need for the nested if function, and it is ifs. So let's go ahead and enter that. So I will start by entering ifs, and let's take a look at the arguments. Our first logical test will be population greater than or equal to 20 million. What do we want it to return if that value is true? We want it to return big. Our next argument, and you'll notice there is a pattern here. It only looks for true values. It doesn't look for false values, or I should say rather, it doesn't return false values. So our next logical test will be if it is equal to or greater than 15 million. So we will once again select our population greater than or equal to 15 million. Value if true, we want it to be considered an average sized city. Now there's two ways I can end this one. If I wanted to just put in a catch-all, I could just type in true and then small, meaning that everything else will end up being small. Or I could actually type it in implicitly. So population is smaller than 15 million. We want it to return small. Close the bracket, and let's drag that down. So yeah, we can see that that worked. But like I said, I sometimes think that putting a catch-all might be also a good idea in case you want to avoid getting any NA errors in the formula. So we can just put true and small, and that should work too. In this example, two criteria need to be true in order for a city to be considered big. It needs to have a population greater than 20 million and a density greater than 15,000. In order to evaluate this, we're going to nestle the AND function into the if statement. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll start with typing in equals if. And now for our logical test, this is where we're going to put in the AND function. And here we're going to evaluate all the conditions that need to be true. So our first condition is the population needs to be greater than 20 million. And our second logical test, the density needs to be greater than 15,000. We'll close the bracket. And now what's the value if this is true? We want it to return big. And if this is not true, we want it to return small. Now let's just drag that down. And there we go. In this final example, there are two ways a city can be considered big. Either it has a population of 20 million or more, or the density is greater than 15,000. To accomplish this, we're going to use the OR function nestled within the if function. So we'll start by typing in the if function, and where the logical test is, this is where we're going to check our OR function. So our first logical test will be population greater than 20 million. The second logical test will be density greater than 15,000. So either of these can be true. So if either of these are true, the city will be considered big. So what do we want to return? If the value is true, we want it to return big. Otherwise, we want it to return small. Close the bracket, hit enter, And let's just drag that down. And let's just take a quick look, make sure it worked. Let's just look at New York, for example. If we look at New York, although the population is less than 20 million, it does have a density greater than 15,000, so it returned a value of big. Please like and subscribe if you found this video helpful. There are countless different ways you can use the if function. This video just scratches the surface, but hopefully I gave you enough to get started. Thanks for watching.